On today's Minute of the Apes, it's already been canceled, but don't sleep on Thundercats Go.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Ready to the divine bomb.
The only good human is a dead human! There is fire, there is smoke.
The minute of the apes. 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 Yay!
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd. I've got Richard and Sean with me. It's Friday. Are we ready to tackle one last minute of recapping 4 films?
I think we can get to it.
I have third breakfast ahead of me, so yeah, I'm going to get through this.
All right, well then let's get right to it today. Let's not waste a lot of time. Sean, tell us what we're going to see with minute 5.
All right, we start Minute 5 with a voiceover orangutan saying the surface of the world was ravaged, and ends with a figure on a horse riding a ridge in the distance.
Ooh, a ridge in the distance. That was almost poetic of you, Sean.
Well, thank you.
Now let's take a listen. Minute 5, Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
The surface of the world was ravaged by the vilest war in human history. The great cities of the world split asunder and were flattened. And out of one such city, our Savior led a remnant of those who survived in search of greener pastures, where ape and human might forever live in friendship according to divine will. His name was Caesar, and this is his story in those far-off days.
As of Minute 5, we have an orangutan, but I'm still not including the counts from the previous movies, and this guy doesn't get clouded until the next minute.
Okay, so we get shots at the end of Conquest. Things are burning. Apes' fists are rising.
Mm-hmm.
We, now that they know this is the story of Caesar, that's at least some new information. We're now told what we're going to see. What do we feel about what we're going to see? What do we think's going to happen when you start thinking about it, that the Sleepy-Eyed Lawgiver has told us that we're about to see this story?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how far out we are from the last movie. So, the last movie was in the 90s. Is this 10 years out? Is this 20 years out? I mean, I know we're not being scientifically accurate with how apes and everybody live, but, chimpanzees can live a long time. So, I want to know what our time frame is here that we're looking at.
That was the most disinterested ramp up to a thought.
All right, so the vilest of war in the world split asunder and were flattened. If anybody's seeing the first 4 movies, they're probably thinking about the things that happened inside beneath the Planet of the Apes. And if there were actually a more appropriate cut to add or a clip to add, it would be that moment where we see decimated, New York City, or the sudden launch of a nuclear missile towards the end, or something along those lines. It just gives, even though it's not the actual first nuclear strike, it'd be nice to go ahead and set up this world with the fact that they're on the edge. They're on the edge of just having a nuclear disaster, or having had a nuclear war. We jump from apes fighting humans to a war that was completely and totally unseen between humans and humans. And I don't know where the other apes are in the world. I don't know what's going on with them. I just know that we're going to a green hillside. The setup that he's talking about is great, but I don't think it really fits in because if these are the future scrolls from 2670 that are then read in 39 whatever, he's telling them then, and this must be a lost scroll, that Caesar and the humans were trying to make peace and be at peace with one another, right? We get into the future and all humans are bad. So this apparently is the lost book of the lawgiver, because that wouldn't have been in the future scrolls.
Okay.
Or it would have been obstructed by,
Well, I mean,
would have been hidden by what's his name? From the first movie.
I don't know who you're talking
The
about.
one who held the scrolls.
Dr. Zaius?
Dr. Zaius. He would have kept this part hidden to keep people scared.
I'm sorry.
Well,
the one who hung the scrolls, I couldn't get my head around that. So, Sean, I'm glad you were able to pull that together.
Yeah, he would have kept it hidden because he wanted to keep humans and apes in discord.
And that would, and I know this was not part of this film and their thought process into that, but that would not be unprecedented because the Bible is a collection of books that are put together. But there is a lot that was, decided by religious leaders thousands of years ago, what books we're going to include in there and what are apocryphal and what counts and what doesn't count.
So the lawgiver could have written this original scroll and it could have been, banned or not included or taken out because it wouldn't have fit the narrative of the first movie.
Yeah.
That's an interesting area that, even with the new films and what they kind of lead us to believe and understand about the world of Planet of the Apes, young Zaius might be an interesting thing that they could develop at some point when he starts taking and manipulating the world that we end up seeing in the first film. That could be interesting. I wish they'd do that. But
we just call it Dr. Z.
We don't get that. We get our setup, and I do love that shot of the horse on that, that hillside. I think that's a beautifully constructed shot with that kind of gloomy filter on it, and it's setting up something. It's just that my thought immediately when I'm watching all this is, it seems even in that a little removed from what I think the film needs. I think it needs the urgency of seeing that writer writing to give information, and instead we get a passive and it's like, there's no urgency again to this film. We've started off with a very lazy moment.
Right. I don't know how you would have switched this around, but you could have started with a person riding the horse across the pasture and then move to the lawgiver telling a story on top of what's happening. I don't know. Just the clips were so. We've got no action in the forest when we move to the lawgiver. We have no action really of the man riding of the horse, other than the fact that we get these, green areas. We have no sense of the destruction around us. We've then just got clips that are supposed to get us excited about this movie. It's a really weak start.
It is, and I think it's probably pretty safe to say the weakest of them all. We have other things at least with if I think back to the beginnings of each of these films, I start thinking of Escape. I think Escape has an incredibly strong start with, it's compelling. There's something out here, and we have divers going into the water.
There's a rocket out here, and and what is this? There's apes in an astronaut's costume. What? How can that be?
Well, is this the fault of Thompson? I mean, is this kind of I couldn't think of anything more dramatic to open these films on?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was just about to say, here we have a story element by Dane, but he's far too sick at this point to write it himself. And now the Thompsons are in charge of this, and I do think that it's a different approach, and I think that we feel that right away, that we're not getting that presence of a good, strong voice telling us a story.
The idea of the lawgiver giving all of this big giant world, the gentleman on the horse coming forward is like, in my sense, I'm like, okay, we're about to start a quest. Like, that's what I wanted to see at this particular moment, right? We're gonna talk more about it next week, who is exactly on this horse. But in this minute alone, I think, okay, it's the quest. Here comes the person on the horse. It's about to, be told to go do something specific. But it's not having juxtaposed all those violent clips in the moments before. It just kind of really brings the tone really drops back down. We jump back to these moments here.
So I want to jump back
Todd,
in again.
real quick, Todd. You're talking about Star Wars, and you came in and you understood it right away. But Star Wars also did start with an opening crawl that gave you backstory. So this is their version of it, just really poorly done.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't disagree with you, Sean. I don't disagree
Because
at all.
at this point, this movie is so far. I mean, this franchise with having apes take over in the future, then people travel back to the past and make the apes that take over the future. It's kind of up its ass a little bit. So you kind of have to give a background, but they could have done it better.
So I want to give the credit where credit is due, or if you want to, the way we're sounding, it may be that we're not trying to give any credit, but Paul Dane was very sick at this point and could not continue on with screenwriting. The duties were handed off to John William Corrington. Why can't I say that today? And Joyce Hooper Corrington, husband-wife team. They are the couple that are responsible for actually one of my early films that I absolutely loved, 1971's The Omega Man.
Okay.
They also wrote the screenplay for Boxcar Bertha, which was an early Scorsese film. So they have a few skins on the wall, but they really... That's where, again, you start looking that the studios maybe went, hey, they've done a couple of things, and they've worked with Charlton Heston on The Omega Man. Let's bring them in, because then you watch their screen credits go on from there. They wrote the Killer Bees TV movie. They worked on the TV series Search for Tomorrow, Texas, Capitol, General Hospital, One Life to Live. So they're good writers, and they worked for a very long time, but I guess maybe when you're brought in probably with very limited time to dig deep into this, you're also told Dane's notes and story structure are what we're going with. They don't have a lot of a chance to work on anything, but you do wish that they could have just given this story oomph right off the bat, because you can mention Star Wars and it has its crawl, but what does Star Wars do right away? Bomb, bomb, bomb.
We're in the action.
Ships over the
Oh
head.
yeah, then it gets right into it. Yeah.
And
This
this one
just
doesn't
takes
do that. It's
5
very
minutes.
lackadaisical.
This takes 5 minutes to get into it, and then it doesn't get into it.
Right.
But yeah, real quick, Todd, I've known you most of my adult life. I don't think I've ever heard you use the term "skin on the walls."
Really?
No.
Well, I did.
I
First
know
off,
what you're saying, but I've never heard you use that term.
I don't know that. I didn't know that you were keeping like a tab over there of the sayings I'd
Well,
said. But
I can mark that one off now.
I know, yeah. Todd saying book.
done.
Uh-huh.
I've surprised Sean. I didn't think I could do it, but I've surprised him.
Good night, everybody. Have a good time. It's Friday.
Hey,
Yeah, thanks.
y'all remember
Episode's
when
over.
20th Century Fox was a thing?
Yeah,
This was the 20th Century Fox movie.
that is true, and that is also why the three of us are going to be making an Apes podcast for the rest of our life, because Disney has said they're going to continue
wanna
to keep
keep it going,
eight
yeah.
movies. Yeah, so.
They're going to redo it, or are they going to keep the current franchise?
They
going
haven't
forward?
said, but to me, it feels like they're saying they want to keep it going in the universe that they started,
Yeah,
the new universe.
while we're talking, I'm on IMDb already. They
Looking it up.
They
Didn't they announce this? Did they announce this last little D4
Whatever it was,
it's called?
yeah,
we're-
there's so
We're telling everything
what I'm
from-
looking for is they signed a director on, and unfortunately, I can't
Oh,
find
they
it.
did. They were that far along.
Yeah, they brought a director on, and I forget who it is now, but they said they are not committing to whether it is a continuation or expansion upon, but they are actively developing. I'll just do a Google search for who's actively developing.
Look it up, Todd. Look it up. Look it up, Todd. Look it up.
No, not having seen the modern films, I think that the franchise itself is worthy of creating its own new series of franchise that they can mold in the way that they want.
I think when you see the new movies, you will understand that is a valid opinion.
Okay.
Well, I found the article.
There are so many things they could do. They can go in between the three movies and tell stories there. They can go outside that. They can go sideways and tell stories that are happening in the movies. Yeah, there's plenty to be told there.
Yeah, I found the article, but just skimming over, I'm not seeing the person. So I'll continue to look for this while we keep talking. But
We have a whole nother movie to figure this out too. Yeah.
we do.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I wanted to,
Do all this
tell the
research.
story now.